It is 7:01.
I'd like to
Wait again.
I'd like to call a meeting of the Dunbarton Board of Selectmen to order for Thursday, May 10th. And it's 7:01, we're 1 minute behind the power curve. We have a good agenda tonight, public hearing on the road project at 7:15, but until then, let's talk about minutes, gentlemen. Favor motion.
Do you wanna say who's at the meeting?
I
There's
do,
orange
I
people
do.
in the machine,
I think
but
it's,
you have the color.
I have the 3 selectmen present, I have the town administrator present, I have the recording secretary present, I have, the gentleman, Leo, recording for the town on a, recording for the public, stand corrected, and I also have the road agent here, Mr. Jeff.
Crosby.
We did that in unison.
I'm so glad I have help.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of May 3rd, 2018.
As amended, Dave?
No, I didn't make any changes.
I did make one change.
As amended.
You have to assume
I know.
that. And I'll second the motion.
Okay, just quick discussion, I just added to the, when I brought up the asbestos, I wanted it came back positive, I said for the town office building, I wanted that delineated.
He doesn't want to know about the other buildings.
Right, just for now. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
And Jennifer, you saw that change I made?
Yes, I did.
They were small, but you see how they were just
Mhm.
minimal.
Yeah.
Great minutes again.
Yeah.
He keeps saying that, but he keeps changing it if he wants.
Yes, but the thing is, you gotta realize,
See, if I was sitting where she was, I would have said, if they were great minutes, why'd you correct them?
but
So if he was correcting his yes.
that's correct, that is absolutely correct. I want you to sign it and pass it on.
Just send it on.
Okay, we have 10 minutes, gentlemen. I can do some town business while we're waiting.
Will you check the hearing yet?
No, that's, I might as well do that first. But, I'll open up for public comment. No public comment? Okay, hearing none, I'll bring it back to the board, and, we'll do a few minutes of town business. I'm gonna go through some of the stuff in the inbox before the public hearing on the road projects. Yeah. The first one is, we have a estimate of what type of work they wanna do at Gorham Pond for milfoil, and it appears to be less. And so the projected amounts may be executed and take care of the problem will probably be less this year. That's an initial estimate of activities. And she sent an email with the delineated where they wanna treat, and so it's significantly less than previous years.
Nice.
Okay, Bob, you already saw that today?
Yes.
That's
Okay.
the email from Amy Swindle.
I was hoping you'd show up.
This is just an
Hoping I'd show
FYI.
Cool.
Sign that.
I got your email.
There's a additional,
Huh?
one of the residents receiving some additional charges
I have
to,
to.
in a criminal investigation.
Sorry, I didn't hear.
One, a Dunbarton citizen is undergoing an investigation, there are additional charges being placed against them.
Oh, okay,
I'm leaving the names off for appropriate reasons.
right.
I'll leave it as a Dunbarton resident.
Jen, you'll find it on that list that are my notes, I've listed all those
Okay.
things that he'll be bringing up.
Thank you.
I have something from Judy Stone for Jeff tonight.
That's the same thing I got.
It may be, yes.
Yeah, but you gotta come up.
Okay. I got an email from the library. Oh, sorry. What was, I wasn't sure.
It's actually a
Last-
copy of their, public library meeting table policy, which they adopted, November sixth, 2017, which kind of prompted the discussion that the board talked about a little bit last week with, closing the library if it was a problem for public use of the bathrooms.
Okay, and I saw a notice that the library will be closed this coming weekend.
Yeah.
I need to read that up, I didn't have a chance to read that up. So I'll leave it in the box, I'll read it in a week. I'll read this.
Oh, the policy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say this, the transfer station is on bereavement leave right now, and so with the discussions we had with them, we're gonna table to next week. Is it on safety
I'll
glasses?
read that whole book.
Yes, I'm sorry.
He's welcome.
In the mailbox this week, gentlemen, we have a lawsuit against the town, and we have an FYI, just please read that, there's no need to discuss it tonight, but it's in the mailbox, it's just, we have an update from the lawyer who's representing the town of Dunbarton. If you just read that, it'd be great,
Okay.
no action needed. And I could talk about another item, Lean has created a file here, gentlemen, and it's for changes to the personnel policy. We are starting to accumulate a few little, refinements we're gonna need in the personnel policy. And if you have anything as you go through it, you can add it to this file, and you can take a peek at what other people are thinking. But, when we have, it'll be it'll drive the agenda for the workshop, if we need to have an actual workshop, or we do it in one of our meetings. But I think we're gonna leave that for maybe next 2 weeks, and then we can, decide which direction we have to go to update the personnel manual for the year. Dave, this is a file if you see it. It's got a few things in there already.
I did read them earlier today
Okay.
with Lean, so.
Yep,
Yep.
so we're good there. An update on, Lean, you posted the job opening for the welfare director?
That's correct, I've received one to date, and I have had one inquiry by telephone, so.
Okay, so it's another week before we have any action on
Yep,
that.
yep.
So it's making some progress. Okay, Lean, on the other thing, we worked last week on the painting proposals. Did that go out?
Yep, it went out on Monday, contacted the individuals that had provided us with, a quote for the town office painting. It's been posted on the NHMA website, and, it's on our hot topics as well, so.
Okay. Very good. Next item, the tax collector essentially gave me a courtesy update with some information. If you recall, gentlemen, there are two potential tax deeds we're talking about. To date, one has been paid, and the second one has a partial payment with anticipated full payment before the June 5th cutoff.
Oh, great.
So that's just an update, and she'll keep us informed as she makes progress as we approach the June 5th cutoff. Okay,
Mike, I can give an update if you
okay,
have extra
Yeah.
time. I did talk with Jeff Trexler in length this week in reference to Score Construction and the work I had done with Bowen Construction to give us the corrected estimate to finish the balance of the, metal work to be done in the town library, town hall / library. And, Jeff Trexler is willing, on his own time to take a look at that structure to make sure that the metal is our best option. Even though we're gonna get pricing to complete the metal, he's gonna take a look to make sure there are no wood options that might be lighter, to put less load on the building, and to see if he's in full agreement with the previous engineer's, findings.
great.
So, I told him that, at this point where he wasn't the original engineer on the job, we'd be willing as a select board to maybe pay him for some of his fees, and he absolutely refused to take any money for it. He said he's never charged the town one bit for any of his engineering help, and he's not gonna start now, and he wouldn't take it if we gave it to him, so.
So Jeff said that engineers agree?
I don't know about that, he said he's gonna check. But he said he had reviewed the previous loading, and, he will go through it one more time, and he said it'd probably be about a month and a half before he could get to it.
Okay,
And I told him that was within our time frame of getting it done before the fall hits, so.
excellent. Anything else, Dave?
No, I just wanna thank him for his time and his effort.
Okay, he'll be arriving tonight. We'll be talking with him about a school board audit results update after the public hearing on the road projects. Well, have anything you wanna talk real quick?
Not off the
Okay.
top of my head.
Lean, you got 2-3 minutes. Anything you wanna say?
I just wanna let you know that I'm in the process of finalizing the warrant for the first half's taxes. it should be complete by next Friday. We're, picked up some substantial new revenue, and it should be ready for the tax collector to distribute by the May 31st date.
Okay. Jeff, you had something for this section?
Well, I just wanted to talk about this thing you got from Judy Stone, you wanna do that now?
Oh, no, that's in probably a public hearing.
Oh, that's part of the public hearing?
Yes.
Yeah, she couldn't make it, so she sent her,
Oh, I get it.
Okay,
her road.
That's what you wanted to bring it up.
Right, yep.
okay, not a problem.
Misunderstood that.
No, that's, it happens to me all the time, and I have two corrections on either side of me.
Oh, yeah, a couple of good guys here keeping an eye on it.
I did wanna say I saw the event this weekend broadcast on WMUR Channel 9, and, historic Dunbarton got labeled for some good news for a change, so.
Was that before or after the bad news?
Before.
Before.
Okay, it's close enough, I think I can, it's still 2 minutes. Let me see.
A question I had builders called you back, Lean, in reference to the gutters?
I spoke to them on the phone and I emailed him directly and I explained our situation, how we wanna just modify that a little bit, and I have not heard back from him yet, so I can follow up with that.
And you said earlier the library, RFPs are all out?
For the paint?
Yep.
Yep, they are, yeah, and we have extra copies if people call, they're available on, Hot Top, well, it's under doing business RFPs and the,
NHMA.
and NHMA, yeah,
And we're just doing that building at this time?
yeah, we usually keep them separate.
Okay, and when do we as a select board wanna start on just building and or some of the minor painting at the,
I like to, and it's gonna be open for how many weeks? I would say within, as soon as we get the bids in, so we have ascertained how much funding is left.
okay,
And I'd say that would be, we aggressively go after that, because I think it would probably be similar in cost to this building here.
oh, and I have one other thing that I'd like to bring up before I forget it. Last year it was brought to our attention that over by the stairs on the side of the police building and in the back corner of the fire department and in the front corner of the school on the left-hand corner, there were piles of leaves there built up. And we talked about getting those cleaned up and out of there last fall.
And last week.
Okay,
And I did go there after I left Lean here today on my way home to check that area, and nothing had been done in that
I
area.
have not communicated that to him.
So,
Yep.
I would like to maybe even, maybe before we release that check that we have there,
Yeah,
make sure we talk a little about that, because that
I'll call him because he was
kinda, I'm
out
not
here
sure if he's
again
thinking
mowing.
it's a border area, but I don't think the fire department mows any section other than what he gets mowed, right?
Mhm.
So also, right in front of the fire department, there's a telephone pole with a little bit of grass around that, and it's just chock-a-block full of leaves as well, but that corner is,
It's built up against the buildings and fire hazard too.
yeah, it's built up pretty good again,
Right,
so.
cause the wind blows it in that area, that's what he had mentioned last year, cause we brought it to his attention last year.
Yeah.
And, said, well, the leaves blow in after he's done all his
Right,
cleanup.
he'll do one sweep through and then they come through again from other areas because it's a low
But
area.
it does make sense to get it if he doesn't get it in the fall, get it in the spring.
Right,
I don't think it got done last year, right? Didn't look like it to me.
Last year he did go over and get it done.
yeah, we asked him to do it.
I know we asked him, but it doesn't look like anything got done.
No,
It did,
I had gone over after he supposedly did it and it was clean.
okay.
Okay, gentlemen, it is now 7:16, we're gonna open the public hearing on the road projects for 2018. Mr. Crosby, please, you have the floor.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm glad to see Ron made it.
I always try.
He tries, sometimes he calls, I'm late, you know, I'm in traffic or
I've got
whatever.
my list.
He's pretty religious about coming to this every year, which is good.
I missed the budget here, you know, I really,
Could you guys-
What happened then?
I got traveled on a road
Oh,
trip.
okay.
No,
Just
and
need
Tell me
Lean
to
for the
Brock, I
record.
just didn't know if his face
Lean?
was.
State the name for the public,
for, yes.
for their discussion going.
Oh, yeah. Please state your name for the record and where you live, sir.
Ron Slocum, Tenny Hill Road, Dunbarton.
Okay, what number?
55,
55, okay.
hasn't changed yet.
Okay. No, Lean, kinda like, warned me ahead of time to
Yeah.
watch out for you at the budget hearing, because you'd be asking those difficult questions.
I had them all lined up, and unfortunately, my company sent me on a road trip.
And I was
so-
being grilled for
Yeah.
those questions, I never had the opportunity
I know.
to exercise my knowledge.
Oh, well,
Next year.
next year, I'll have to double them up.
That was the best phone call we could have made. No,
Yeah.
Wow.
we're just
Tough,
kidding.
tough crowd, huh?
It is a tough,
Tough
hey,
crowd.
I could get this at work too, so. Take a
All
number.
right, just for this gal's thing, I'll state my name, Jeff Crosby, road agent. And we're gonna talk about our road projects this year. Every year we have a public hearing just to kinda line it out. And, the first thing I'm gonna do is give you an update on the Stock Bridge, cause that's part of our road projects. My understanding is, I'm talking with Mike Hanson today, they're gonna set the first set of footings tomorrow morning, or tomorrow at some point, on the northerly side of the bridge. He's got everything coordinated to do that. And then they will remove the steel sheets on that side, backfill it, and then move from that side over to the southerly side. And do the same over there, get that all ready excavation wise, set the footings over there, backfill them, remove that, and then set the arch bridge sections on top of that.
The
So,
footings are deep enough that they won't get bothered by the water at all?
they're way below the water. Yes, they're designed, they're like 4 feet 10 below the bottom of the stream bed.
Yeah.
No, they're fine, it was all engineered that way and everything else, that's why it's that way.
So I know how far they're below the water, but how much are they, do they stick up above?
There's a
the water?
pedestal that sticks up,
Oh, okay.
and I can't remember that.
Oh, so the
That might be,
pedestal will be part of the
the
footing?
pedestal and the footings are all one piece.
Okay,
It's the footing that goes up, I think the actual pedestal is 3 feet 10 inches tall, the footing's a foot thick, so the overall dimension is 4 foot 10. And they have a notch in the top of them, and then the arch part of the bridge sits in that notch.
okay.
But yes, those are all one piece, there's 3 of them that go together to make up 30 feet wide.
Okay.
There's 3 on the other side, so a total of 6. And then there's footings for wing walls, which are up a little bit higher, that direct the water over the bank, and then the arch goes in there. So that's what he told me today. That's, they've been down there, they had dug the hole, got stone in it, and, you know, been prepping it, and, you know, they had to schedule Crane and Ritchie Corporation to make the first delivery, and they've got that all straightened out.
So tomorrow should be an active day then.
Yeah, somewhat active. I don't think it's a real big deal. They've been in contact with our town engineer, Jim Donnison, to, you know, review the work or whatever.
And Jeff, did they tell you, do they plan on setting the arch as soon as, after they have each side done?
As far as I know, yes.
Okay.
But I mean, you know, I don't know exactly, you know, they gotta pour grout in this tomorrow, it's gotta cure for 2 days. They're figuring through the weekend, and Monday they can start backfilling it and go over to the other side and repeat that whole process on the other side.
Yeah,
So
the
I'm
firewalls
thinking
and-
next week, they'll leave all next week up, just getting the other footing set, I would think. So my hope is that they continue right at that pace and continue moving on.
So as far as you know, he's not planning on pulling off to go,
Well, sometimes he has to take a day to go do something on other jobs, and
Right.
that may happen, I'm not sure, but, you know, he's got equipment everywhere, I know
Right.
that. So, yes.
Are you pleased with the work so far?
Yeah, yeah, I mean, we really, to be honest with you, not a lot has got done since the initial driving of the sheets and removing the old bridge. A few little minor things, but this is the most major
Okay.
thing, so. I mean, to be honest with you, I wish we were a little further ahead, but we're not. So, but we're starting to pick up speed now.
we'll probably go quick once it starts.
I would think so, yeah.
Okay.
So that's the first project, top of the list. Another area we're gonna work is over on Grapevine Road. We've got one last section, approximately 5,000 linear feet of overlay pavement we're gonna put on that. That will complete all the steps of rebuilding that road and paving it. We'll have to do some minor shoulder work to it. We'll be done that section. And we're gonna do some shimming in different parts of the town, Robert Rogers Road, Montalona Road. That's just putting a little layer of pavement over some of the really bad spots where we seem to have to be coal patching it, that were really causing us a problem. It's kind of a maintenance shim thing. We got several areas around town that we're gonna be doing that in. You know, they're just little stretches, you know, it could be 300 feet, 500 feet, 1,000 feet. Make, you know, uphold the asphalt together better and just buy us some more time till we do more work, higher scale, some on Gorham Pond Road as well. Another project that we're gonna do is we are working with the school on their project up there, the parking lot behind the police station. As we kinda talked with them earlier in the year, if you guys remember, that they're doing this extensive construction process, relocating the fire road, and the parking lot was really horrible, it was falling apart, and it needed to be dug up, new asphalt put down. So we're gonna work kinda in conjunction with the school and get that done, we're committed to doing that. It would be would've been nice if it wasn't this year, due to, you know, where we're spending money in a lot of different directions, but it's the time to do it, so it's.
Is your budget gonna?
Yeah, it will.
Okay.
Yep, no, we will. It's just, we won't be doing a lot of overlaying any large section of road other than Grapevine Road, unless, you know, there is one thing, last year we got $85,000 from the state. I don't know if we're gonna get an additional 85 this year or not from that.
Okay.
That's just, I haven't heard any talk one way or the other. So that was kind of a surprise last year, and that really helped us out. I continue to do brush cutting, you know, pothole repairing, we got some culverts. They're on the list to be repaired. Some of this stuff, we gotta kinda take it a little bit easy and see how the budget does hold up and make sure we don't run into any problems. There's a small section of road on Kimball Pond Road that we have to actually tear up and replace the pavement there. It's, basically completely gone, and, you know, we've been patching it over the years, and it's just, you can't do it anymore, it's on a hill, so we gotta do a little work. It's not a big section, again, just a small section. One of the other projects that we really wanna try to get done is our intersection on Holmes Road. Up down here, we've been talking about it for several years, and we just keep putting it on the back burner, but really, it's gotta get done. It's something we,
Refresh me where that one is, Chuck?
partway down Mills Hill on the left.
Yeah,
Toward the top of the hill and.
by Souls?
Yes,
Exactly.
exactly.
Okay,
Not, yeah, Stan Soul, Jim Marcoux lives at the end of the road,
okay.
and, Brent Soul and his wife live over.
Now, what are you talking about doing over there?
It's realigning the intersection, actually moving it uphill a little bit and making the grade so it isn't steep like this,
Mm-hmm.
and just tying it into the new road. We rebuilt the upper section of the road already.
I have been there
Yeah.
a while back, though.
Yeah, but it's basically to complete that, is to make that intersection. Two things we're gonna do, it doesn't come down to the road at a very manageable angle, it comes down very sharp, and also the sight distance is really pretty minimal.
Are you talking way down by 13?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, where it intersects 13. We're gonna move that southerly or uphill, and that'll give more sight distance looking down the hill. It's always been kind of problematic, but with the increased amount of traffic and everything else, it's getting to the point where it's.
Would that require any coordination with DOT?
Yes, I'm working with them on the, you know, permit part of
Right.
it.
Okay,
They were in the loop on it. And they don't have any issues.
great.
You know, they're all fine with that. Again, like I said, brush cutting throughout town. That's it. Grading dirt roads, making them dusty.
Are you gonna use, try any of that, new product that the people were talking about, for keeping dust down?
Well,
I found of several more
you found
products
some more
too.
stuff for me?
Yeah.
We had, what was that stuff last year, Gorillas?
Gorilla
No,
Snot.
it's not, yeah,
That didn't-
I found several others that
Okay.
are a lot less expensive.
Yeah, that didn't really materialize too
No.
well with that. That one, I talked to the gentleman a little bit, and I wanted him to give us a sample, and he didn't wanna give us a sample.
Yeah.
But I'll,
You have some ideas that you can share with them?
Yeah, I have some other stuff I'm gonna go over with, I don't have them with me tonight.
yeah, he'll
but
give me the information.
I'm ready to be a guinea pig, hey, I'll buy the initial amount, because these are really highly concentrated things, you have to mix with thousands of gallons of water
Make sure to get this part
So-
of the record.
to soak it through. I didn't say I wouldn't submit the bill to the town,
Now,
but,
they're all,
they weren't very pricey,
okay,
they were pretty inexpensive to buy some of
a
this
green
stuff.
product, so to speak.
Yeah,
Good.
Yeah,
Is
find about
calcium
4
not
of them.
green, is that why?
Well, it's
Every
not,
other
it,
question?
it
Well,
does
they get
good,
upset when
but
I
it's
dump
not
oil
green,
on the
no,
road,
it's
so.
not green. Calcium chloride, that's what we really put down, a flake calcium chloride.
Right.
And yeah, it isn't the best for the environment. But we try not to overdo it, but.
Yeah, but you only did it twice last year.
Was this all? Well, a lot of times, Mother Nature helps us just when we think.
Yeah, a little.
It's unfortunate, because the cars zip down by Ron's house there, and that's just,
How is that stuff
No.
sold, Jeff, when you buy it?
we buy what we use by the bag,
And it's called flake calcium chloride?
yes.
You know, unfortunately, Ron knows the traffic has picked up over the years.
Big time.
Big time.
And it will increase more, I
And what-
think, with the new
Yeah,
subdivision. up
right,
there.
and
People-
and what the problem is that everybody goes like 50 miles an hour on that
Yeah.
road. So
Down
that's-
your end of the road, the speed is a problem, but because it's shaded,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
a little
well,
more moist most of
But
the
it
time.
does
but-
pick up,
Yeah,
what
it
happens
does.
is it picks up just past the power lines.
Yeah,
And it'll
and
just
then
down
comes
that
down.
way.
Falls,
Yeah.
yeah.
Cause it drags, you know? And they're gonna be doing a large logging operation up there,
Oh, really?
yeah. Cards, Dennis cards,
Oh, all right.
yeah, a lot of.
You've been talking about that for years.
Yeah.
Finally gonna
well,
do it?
Yeah, we're
Okay.
supposed to do that this year, and they're gonna be yarding it all across from, Lebrex.
Oh, down that end. okay.
Yeah. So.
Is that on Tenny Road you're talking?
Tenny
Yeah,
Road, yeah.
right,
He has a big chunk of land. He's got like 80 acres in
Yeah.
there that has his frontage where his house does, goes around Karen,
and comes
Camp
back,
has frontage again, and then goes down underneath the power lines,
yeah,
all along that side there, down toward the
So
power
it's
lines.
across the street from yours?
Mhm.
Okay, so.
Yeah,
the
it's a
whole
big
corner-
gray house right across the street from
Okay.
us. Yeah, he's got a lot of acres and a lot of frontage
Yeah.
down Tenny Hill.
Jeff, you have that email, you gonna address that?
Yeah, I've been talking to Judy Stone about this, I mean, she's been bending my ear about it. The only thing that she tells about, I guess, our late husband Jim had put some drainage in there at some point in time. I don't know when, but obviously, quite a period of time ago. There was a culvert there, I believe, years ago, and then when the previous road agent, myself, Jan Van Bogart, did some work down there, they put a new culvert in. And it was probably, I've been road agent, I think this is my 13th year, and it was probably 15 years ago. Anyway, and, she kinda thinks culvert is what's causing the issue with the field being wet, but I just wanna point a couple things out to you guys. This is the culvert, that was taken last Sunday, as you can see, it's pretty high flow.
You look high, flow to me, yeah. Is a trickle coming out of it?
Is there a trickle coming out?
A little bit.
So it's not a lot of
very
water
high
comes out
flow.
of it. You know, that's kind of being facetious.
But where, I know, but where is she talking? Her husband obviously didn't put the culvert
No,
under the
town put
road.
that culvert in. They
So
replaced one.
what culvert did he put in that she's talking about?
He's talking about some drainage in the field in this part.
So if that drainage is clogged up in the field, that doesn't really have much to do with us, does
That's
it?
kind of what I've been telling her, but she's pretty adamant that it's the town's fault. I just wanna point one other thing out to you. You can see these rut marks here in the field, and there's rut marks here. Both these locations are uphill from the invert of this culvert. And I do know it's pretty hard to get water to run uphill.
Okay.
I mean, there's no doubt that the culvert probably adds to the wetness at the bottom of the field, but
But there was a culvert there before you
As
guys.
far as I
put
know.
the new one in.
yeah, as far as I know.
Would be worthwhile to just meet with her on
Oh,
site?
yeah, no, I've been telling her I was going, it hasn't really been high priority.
Understood.
But, you know, she was taking advantage of the fact that we're having a road
Yeah,
meeting, come invoice
yeah,
the concern, which
absolutely.
I don't have any problem with.
Good. Well, I just think that we just, as long as you address
Yeah,
it.
I mean,
It's one thing to see pictures, but you have to see it on site.
yeah, but again, like I said, this was last weekend, and it really isn't a lot of water comes through there, it's just, you know, it's real early springtime when the snow melts, and maybe after a real high rain or something.
I just asked this out of curiosity, Jeff, is there a chance that when the water comes across that culvert, that we can send it down the edge of the road instead of across their field?
Yeah, very possible.
That kinda does go back up again though, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So it might not be.
Yeah, I don't know, I'd have to really go out there and look at it.
I haven't seen exactly where that culvert is, but I know that after that dip in the field, it goes back up again and then down, so.
Yeah, it's the, I guess it's the field that would be closest to her residence, her house.
Yeah,
She has a name for the field, but I can't remember.
Is this the culvert that, right there, that little dark spot that she's picturing here? Is that what that is? Is that the culvert?
No, this is just, that's looking, that's where this,
That's what
Oh, okay.
yeah, no, I'll talk to her, no big deal. So, but I mean, I didn't really think we needed to redo a whole drainage system, I mean, whatever, I'll talk to her.
See what, a site visit is probably
Yep.
worthwhile, rather than just looking up an email.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's
Okay. Nothing, no other comments from the public?
Yes,
One thing that happened, when you were doing some repair work on Tenny Hill, I noticed
Yep.
you're putting down some more crushed granite kind of topping on
yes,
some of
some
those
real,
areas.
some rock when it was really muddy. It's pretty coarse still.
It is, but it solved a lot of dust issues. I'm wondering, is there some kind of a hybrid of a different form of gravel top layer that might help alleviate this issue? Because I noticed any place you put that down, it wasn't getting dusty anymore.
Yeah, but that kind of rolls under the tires a lot, and it's really heavy. We're gonna actually, we haven't graded it much because it was kind of an odd spring. It went
Yeah.
from mud to now it's dusty.
Right,
And we don't really grade it much when it's like this, cause that makes the dust even worse.
yeah,
So we'll wait for some rain, and we've added a little material to it to mix it back and forth. Every time we grade it, they'll mix that stone in a little better. The only trouble with stone is it doesn't really freeze really well in the winter.
So
It
plows
rolls
pick it
off
up.
the road and we plow it all on the shoulder, and you can
Okay.
see evidence of that when you go up the road.
Okay.
When we did the repair to the damage to the road, and then 2 or 3 subsequent snowstorms when it was warm,
mhm,
so it's a challenge.
yeah.
Last
I'll
year
give-
we
I'll give
used,
you the-
last year we used some different gravel on there that was, and I don't know, it seems to be more durable as far as staying in place, but I don't know if it's any less dusty,
Yeah,
cause there's a lot of, it's a crushed ledge product, so we have all the way from 1.5 inches all the way down to nothing, and you have a lot of, like a dust, stone dust in with it.
right,
And that tends to can be a fine dust. The other brown stuff is more of a natural bank run gravel that's
Right,
crushed,
right.
so you have the small grains of sand all the way up through. And
Oh,
it's
the
just,
sand,
it's
yeah.
unfortunate, but a dirt road is,
It's a dirt
it's,
road.
it's
I
dusty.
understand.
And, you know, Leo hit the nose of, hit the nail on the head, it's just the increased traffic.
Yeah.
You know, and we try to grade it and keep it in good shape so it's not rough, and I think that,
You know, I noticed,
the potholes are good because I think some people
I
slow
always have a
down,
few back.
yeah,
but you know what I mean, it's kind of a,
yeah, I noticed some people, especially a lot of the people on the road, they drive slow.
yes,
And other people go bombing right by.
yeah, they don't live on the
And
road.
they don't, they just
They're clueless.
wanna get to the other end, you
Yeah.
know?
And they don't do it to be mean or spiteful,
No,
they just,
right,
they don't
they just don't
realize.
realize it,
Yeah.
exactly.
They're thinking about what they're doing that night, you know, they're going on a date or what's for supper.
Maybe you gotta
or-
get yourself some sprinklers on that thing,
I was wondering, but I'm worried about running my well dry.
use cars.
Yeah.
Jeff, there was some talk last year, I know when this came up in reference to, rolling it right after you graded, is there any, thought of that, any?
And the biggest problem with that is we don't have a roller, we gotta rent a roller, and it ends up being a pretty costly thing. New Boston actually does that,
They do.
and, I was on a road 2 days ago that they had just done that too. It doesn't really seem like there's that big a difference, yes, it does set the stone and pack it a little more. And we've had a couple unfortunate incidences where we've gone out and graded, and then we've got a hard rain afterwards, and that really raises havoc with it, but.
Well, I'm more curious to see what kind of product you, some of this new innovations.
Yeah, I
you
found
talked
about 4 other products out there that look promising, I wanna see if I can
Yeah, I
get
would,
some of those on
it
board.
would be a personal benefit to you and to your neighbors.
Well,
if you-
like I
Yeah.
said, you know, we'll spray them down in front of my house for a while, Leo wants to try it, you know, and just see how it works out before the town makes a big investment in it,
Exactly.
Yeah, maybe you could find out where they have used it, so you could,
but test it out, yeah, that's what I wanna do.
yeah.
They had a little trouble with the last gentleman trying to get that information from him. It was the greatest thing going, but couldn't really give us any.
That tells you something right there.
Well, I don't know if they use it in a different part of the country or something,
Yeah.
you know, but it's very possible.
Yeah, but a couple sample bags when you're gonna buy a large amount is only, is,
Yeah,
Some
most of the
towns are, and it's an accepted practice, what they do is they mix calcium in, in a tank, a water tank.
Right.
They wet it, grate it, and roll it, all kind of, it's a big process, it's pretty labor intense. And, that does several things. It helps hold all the small particles together, so it does help eliminate some of the potholes. But again, it's a pretty intense amount of calcium
What
chloride.
about like they did in the old days where they,
Motor oil,
right, put oil on it?
that was,
at my grandparents' house.
that was the most effective.
environmentally sensitive.
But
right?
that's,
Everybody who bought a new
Yeah.
car headed for those road strips to get
Yeah.
it undercoated, so.
but, it's not really.
That's the way they undercoated
I
the
don't
car,
think,
just drive over it at times.
I'd probably get run out of town if we started doing that. No doubt.
I have one other thing that was,
Sure.
we were talking about striping this parking lot at
Yeah.
one point. I don't really need to be striped the entire parking lot, but just maybe the handicap area, if you could just stripe that handicap.
So that's all we wanna do is the handicap now?
I'd be happy
Well,
with
if it's
that.
budget sensitive,
Well, it's
Then-
only about $600 for the whole thing.
oh, okay, that's not bad.
And
That much for two spray paint cans?
the lines will be like this.
Big E's.
We'll find you
Leave
some 2x4s, 16-foot 2x4s to
Hold
use
on,
as a
are you,
template.
are you striping the new section behind the police department when that's done?
I wasn't gonna.
Okay, so it's just this area that we're talking about?
Well, we had talked about it last year and about doing it, and, the gal that lives in the,
Corin McCubbin asked
Yes.
about that. yeah.
cause she had an issue with people parking in front of her entrance, and there used to be a designated no parking area with some orange stripes and lettering that said no
You
parking.
know, I'm actually with Mike on this, if we do that and maybe her entrance so that people don't block her entrance,
Yeah, that's fine.
I think it might actually look nicer than having this thing fully striped myself. It
Yeah,
takes the
I don't,
country look away from it, having it all.
Striped.
what I would recommend doing if we're gonna do that, this one and the
Yeah.
library.
Handicap
And then in
handicap parking,
entry,
and in the no parking area on that second driveway of McCovern's residence.
yeah,
I think, Bobby, you agree with that?
Yeah.
You get consensus from us? was-
I mean, I think the most important thing is the handicap,
Right,
so
right.
people know where that is and they don't take it. And I mean, I think everybody else can figure out. how to
the
do
sad thing is, it's probably gonna cost you as much to have that done as it all done the other way,
it.
but.
Yeah, I don't know. He's supposed to come out and give me a price, but now I'll just, I had told him
Just
two handicap spots and that, so.
Yeah. Let's scope it down a little bit, that's all.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think, I kind of agree with you, I'm not a big fan of all the white lines, but, you know.
They tend to make them so small and all the pickups don't fit in them anyway, so then you're
Yeah,
kind of one
90% of
and
the
a half.
vehicles out here are trucks.
Yeah,
And then half the time, I don't pay any
And the
attention.
water base, they'll be gone in a year. Yeah,
Yeah,
it is a
it
very
doesn't
good-
last.
Okay. So
Yeah,
just,
we'll
just
just-
the small areas would be great. Thank you.
Alright.
All right, I'm gonna, any other final
No,
comments? sir?
I mean, I tried not to be too.
I have one.
Okay, bring it back to the board.
Keep having one of the neighbors down on our road, on Montalona Road, complaining about that section. What he really wants to know is, cause as you know, that road was skim coated back, I think, again, before you were road agent probably.
What section?
Over by Kimball Pond. The southerly side of Kimball Pond was skim coated and it's flaking heavily and it's been patched many, many times.
We, actually, it had a big wheel rut in it. and
Right.
Since I've been road agent, we shimmed it once, just did a heavy shim, basically filled in the wheel rut. And, you're right, it kinda needs to be done, but I was kinda thinking we're gonna get over there and do some work, and I kinda was trying to hold off on not doing too much of that.
So we're talking about maybe skimming those
Kimball
bad.
Pond down to J Drive is the section you're talking about, right?
That's a section, I saw another area kinda close to that up, by Harrington's. When I
Yes,
came over
yeah.
tonight, there was another section kinda like
Yeah.
that.
The,
Are those the areas you're talking about maybe overlaying again this year?
couple of those, but not all of those. The section up by Harrington's was in about 1995, Simon Audette had dug it up and put a layer of gravel in there and they paved it, and right in front of Harrington's house. One year, the job stopped there, and then the next year continued.
Yeah, it's like the
Yeah,
patch
the
between
two-
where the two
yeah.
connect, they never
Yeah.
finished connecting them, that's the area.
Yeah, they were two different processes.
It's not that big an area
Yeah,
there.
I've been talking with a paving company, we've looked at it a couple times, about just, there's approximately, I think it's 2,000 feet of road, it goes down to, well, I'm gonna call it Candlestick Hill is what we used to call it. I don't know if
Yep.
you're familiar with it, Leo knows what I'm talking about.
On Montalona?
On Montalona, it's,
Geez, I thought I knew everything
if
down that way.
you know where, and I don't even know if he still lives in, where the Wheelers live.
Yeah, yeah.
Just after that, right at the, before the road pitches down and kinda goes like this.
Mm.
That road was relocated, Simon Audette did that, from there up to
Yes, that's right.
Carlton's driveway.
Yeah,
And it was really
Took that
nasty.
corner out,
Yeah, it was like
yes.
this and up and down, and he removed the ledge, blasted it, and reconfigured the road there. And basically, from, Line Hill Road, Jeff Williams' property, and Phil Tallheimer's, that point's about 2,000 feet. And given that it had some kind of base, I was kinda talking to the paver to see if it would be practical to pave that whole thing without getting into a massive, any kind of grinding reconstruction, cause it does have some kind of base. And it's kinda, everybody's like this, everybody I talk to, I get a different opinion on
right.
what to do, but.
Cause I know your budget got juggled, cause last year we talked about doing some sections of Montalona, like, kind of almost like you'd start
Yeah.
with Grapevine Road. But obviously your budget got juggled around.
Yeah.
So,
Over there, we got, we've had some drainage work we gotta do there.
so probably we're gonna put it on next year's agenda
yeah.
for heavy road work is what I'm
Start
thinking.
on that, yes. Actually, from J Drive all the way up to Linda Van de Bogart's house, needs to have an under drain put in front of Kimball Pond Road.
Yeah.
And all the way up to her house, cause there's a severe water problem there.
Yeah.
It's poorly draining soil, and that's why the asphalt caved out, broke like that, so the plan would be to put under drain that whole distance. And we would wanna do that first before we tore the road up.
Okay.
So it's kinda, once we start working there, there's different phases of it.
Yeah, I
So
just
we really
wanted,
wouldn't wanna spend a lot of money on asphalting until we did that.
I just wanted to
like
have
a
something to
shimmer
tell them
type
for,
thing.
you know, I know everything changed a little bit this year, but
Yeah.
last year we told them we were gonna go do some work on
Yeah.
Montalona.
Which we just started doing some of that under drain and stuff.
Yeah.
There's just not enough money with everything we've got laid out now. But next year, we can start.
So for
doing
right now,
it
we'll do a little skim coating.
In different locations, yeah.
Okay.
In drainage work.
No, that's gonna be next
That's
year.
next year.
Some culvert.
Culvert, that's right.
Last year, we replaced all the culverts on, Old Hopkins Road, they were metal culverts, they were all rusted out. So we replaced all those, a couple on Ray Road, and, you know, it's
Okay.
kinda, we've got some that, they're not failed, but they're rusted out, they need to be replaced every year, we try to do a few of that to stay ahead of it.
Bob, any other questions? Dave,
I have no more.
thank you, sir.
Thanks, Jeff.
No problem.
Thanks for letting us know how everything's going on the bridge.
Yeah. And we kept the public at bay for you.
That was pretty good. I
Okay, I'm gonna
appreciate that. Thank
Close
you.
the public hearing on the road projects for 2018. Thank you, Jeff. Okay. Moving right along, we have second Jeff coming. Jeff Trexler from the school board.
Me?
7:45, he's right on time.
How about that? Hi, folks. So, a little update on our project. Framing's underway. We're probably a little bit behind schedule, trying to get our framer motivated to move a little faster, although we're a little ahead of schedule inside the building, doing wiring and stuff in the attic and things like that. As far as our budget goes, we're into our $121,000 contingency by about $16,000 so far, which is pretty good. And it's mostly things that we found that were not included on the drawings, that should have been on the drawings.
Water pumps.
How about rot, was any of the rot included in that?
Yep, some of that, and replacing the rot, and the problem with the rot we found was the warm air from the gym was escaping into the eaves, condensing and rotting out from the inside. So we've replaced the rotted fascia, and we're putting spray foam up in there to seal off the gym so that we're not gonna be losing all that heat out through that area. But a lot of it was electrical. The electrician, or the electrical engineer missed a few things, like the fire alarm stuff in the attic, you know, he didn't show that on the drawings, so we paid extra for that. But we've also found some savings in some areas. We went with a window system that's a little bit, not quite up to the Marvin standard, it's an Anderson product, but we saved like $10,000 on our whole window package by
Oh,
going to
wow.
that.
What
So,
series were they, Jeff?
100 series, that,
There is a 100 series.
it's like a vinyl
Single.
composite,
Yeah, single hung.
single hung, it's not double hung, so only the bottom sash is operable. And it seemed like it was, you know, not quite the quality, but compared to the price, it seemed like a good value. So we made some choices like that. We had a project meeting this morning. I'm glad to see our road posting has been lifted and we're off and running now that all our concrete's in and all our dirt's here, so. So we had a board meeting last night, and one of the things that we talked about last night is our $1 million problem. I'm not sure it's a problem.
I don't think it's a problem.
Yeah. We are still waiting for our forensic auditor to give us the final report. He's done his forensic audit for the unencumbered fund balance issue that I brought to this board, I think a month ago, or a few weeks ago anyways. And the number that he has come up with is $1,059,803. I think it's the same number we had a few weeks ago. Money that is on our books that we did not know was there. The reason we don't have our final auditor's report yet is he's still looking back at our tuition payments to see if there's adjustments in tuition payments back to 2007. Whether we've overpaid or we've underpaid, we're not quite sure yet, could go either way. But they're sorting all that out, so that'll all be in one report, and we'll get all of that information.
Now, at the meeting you had, at the school meeting, I think you guys said you guys thinking you overpaid, right, on those tuitions?
The indication was, it was probably we overpaid, but we're not sure until we get that, the auditor's report, until they dig through all of that stuff. But as far as the unencumbered fund balance, in other words, that every year, the school district turns 100% of their unspent money, unencumbered money, back to reduce taxes the following year. It becomes a revenue to offset how much money has to be raised by taxation. And apparently, there's two different forms that are filled. There's a form that gets filled out for the Department of Education. There's a form that gets filled out for the Department of Revenue Administration. And then there's forms that our auditors look at. And the numbers for unencumbered fund balance in each of those three things were different. They all should have been the same number. So the number that was reported to DRA as being our unencumbered fund balance was too low each year for all of those years. It should have been higher. The amount we had to raise from the town to pay for the school should have been lower each year. And so this money is accumulated in our account, unbeknownst to us. And so it's, 1.06 million essentially is the amount. So we met with our school district attorney last night to talk about, what's available for the community to decide to do with the money. The thought that our board had was, is there a way we can, if the voters choose, to put some money into a reserve fund or trust fund and withdraw amounts from that in order to make our bond payments, for example, for the next several years. The default situation, if nothing happens, if we don't do anything, if the town doesn't vote any additional appropriations, is that money, $1,060,000, would occur as unencumbered funds this October as revenue, and our school tax rate would drop by about $3.50 from what we had projected back in March. So that's sort of the default position. Nothing happens or nothing gets appropriated. In order to appropriate any of this money into any use, either into funds or expenditures or whatever, we would have to have a special school district meeting. And our attorney says there'd be no problem getting court approval to have a special school district meeting, because although the general purpose is in case there's an emergency, you can petition the court for special school district meeting. In this case, it's really, the emergency is the emergence of money that we weren't aware that was there. And our attorney feels that it'd be no problem getting court approval for the town to consider what they want to do with this before the default situation arises, which means a drop in the tax rate. So what our attorney said is, we cannot set up a reserve fund to pay specifically for the warrant article and the title of the fund, to repay debt. RSA 33 colon, I've got it over here, I think it's 2, which talks about how you repay bonds, and you must repay them on an annual basis, you must pay principal and interest and so forth. The very last line says you're not allowed to create a sinking fund or a debt repayment fund. For my school in economics, a sinking fund is where you put money aside every year, and when you build up enough, you make one payment to retire debt. We would be looking to do something kind of the opposite of that, putting money aside and taking some out each year to reduce a portion of the debt, which to me is more like an annuity than a sinking fund. But because it says you can't create a sinking fund or a fund, a debt retirement fund, our attorney says, if we tried to do that, DRA, by the way, says, yes, you can do it.
Oh, that's good news then.
They do, but our attorney says we could be challenged on that. And,
By who? By
you know, the townsperson, yeah, anybody.
Taxpayer, yeah.
And so he said, you know, the state law does allow you to set up other funds, as long as the purpose is geared towards what your mission is for school, so forth. So we could set up a fund where we could withdraw money as the voters choose to pay tuition, for example. And if the amount we choose to withdraw happens to be exactly the same amount as our bond payment, fine, we're applying it towards tuition, but in reality, it's, you know, it's essentially the same amount. So we could
Well,
go.
tuition does come out of your operating budget. Bond payment comes out of the operating budget.
Exactly, exactly. So that's available. And the attorney also said, you know, you could, instead of submitting your final paperwork for the bond, which we voted to do last night, you could hold off, take out a bond anticipation note, which is a short-term note to fund our project, and then have a special school district meeting to see if the voters want to take this chunk of money and apply it towards the bond, reduce the amount of principal in the bond, and go for the bond sale next January for, say, $790,000 instead of $1,790,000. We weren't crazy about that idea. We felt that we would have to go back to the voters to sort of get a mandate to move in that direction. And we're not sure the voters would even want to do that. They may want the $3.50 reduction in their tax rate next year. So to make
So-
that change at this point, we felt wasn't a smart thing to do.
So that being said, like you said, are you overthinking it? What is the harm in it? I know that, what is the harm in just giving it all back to the voters and not overworking yourselves?
No harm whatsoever. The way the board looks at it, though, is if the board decided to do that, we would be deciding for the entire town. The town wouldn't get to weigh in and make that choice themselves. We're thinking we'd rather have a special school district meeting with an option for the town to consider, and let the town decide whether they want to invest this in doing a more gentle reduction in taxes over a few years, or if they want it all back now. If we decide, no, we're not gonna have a special school district meeting, then the school board's deciding for the entire community what's happening that night. We didn't think that was right.
The only trouble I have is if you have, even one or two taxpayers,
Yeah,
as we talked about kind of earlier in the meetings, that move out of town
sure,
with a substantial home,
yeah,
with substantial taxes.
yeah.
Did you talk at all with your attorney about those people possibly coming back on the town looking for their full tax benefit off that
Right.
$1,059,000?
Yep, we haven't. We're kind of relying on what Goffstown did as they examined that. Is there a way that they can go back and actually refund taxes for those who actually paid the taxes? And there really isn't. There's no mechanism in state law to do that.
I don't mean about going back, I mean from this year forward.
Right.
Like, say we decide we're gonna spend that towards tuition over the next 5 years.
Mhm.
And these people are selling their house this year, and they
Right.
think they're owed a portion of that.
Yeah.
Based on the tax rate.
Yeah. They wouldn't have any legal basis to make a claim, because it would be
So-
money that is currently in unencumbered funds. And if in a special school district meeting, the town chooses to appropriate that money, then it's legally appropriated, and the amount of unencumbered funds then is reduced, and the tax rate is set based on that.
One thing Dave did, and I thought was very palatable, is when we had excess funds this past year, we put some into our, shall I say, emergency reserve.
Yeah.
But Dave made the recommendation that the voters, the residents, get some back too.
Yeah.
And that's a possibility too.
So what we're talking about, and I sort of just really quickly sketched up a little graphic here, which is maybe hard to understand, but, you know, the town of expenditures for town and expenditures for school over the last several years, and here we are this year, and, you know, our school taxes have jumped quite a bit. And so for next year, they're gonna go up quite a bit. We could certainly, in a special school district meeting, take a portion of this money and use it to have a flat tax rate for this year. No increase. Right now, we're projecting $1.36 increase on the school side.
You guys could do that right on your own.
Sure.
Yeah,
And then the difference appropriate into, say, a fund where then you reduce
Tuition, for example.
for the next 3 years, so now we're here and here and here, and then you jump back up, assuming that, you know, school taxes are gonna go up a certain percentage every year. You drop down a little bit and then go up, as opposed to dropping down to here and then back up to there. So that's the difference between the two.
People in fixed incomes would have a great 1 year, but the other years would be a little more
I mean,
problematic.
it'd be a great savings, shoots right back up again, and there's no real wrong answer here. There's certainly
So-
advantages one way or the other.
The public weighs in on that, and I think it's important that, I think you have a scheduled meeting in June.
We have a forum schedule where we're gonna get some feedback.
theoretically, if people were good money managers, it would be better for you to have all your own money and invest it the way you should.
Right,
Typically, people aren't good money managers.
exactly. The voters, taxpayers tend to be more short-sighted than thinking the long term. 'Cause
It's
who
easy
knows
to be,
what's
nobody
gonna happen.
likes paying taxes.
I know. But we didn't feel the school board should make this choice alone. We felt that perhaps the town should weigh in and at least consider one or the other.
Having a special meeting would be in my opinion, would be the most proper thing,
Yep.
so that people that are interested are gonna be there, they'll weigh in whatever their opinions are,
Yep.
and the consensus, whatever the consensus is, the consensus is.
Another advantage of doing, say, the approach over 3 or 4 years here is if we set up a reserve fund, we would set it up where the school board is not the agents to expend. The only way money could be expended out of that fund is by a vote of the voters at a district meeting. So there have to be a warrant article each year to withdraw an amount. And that warrant article can be amended at any district meeting. We get to this point here, and people say, no, let's not do this, let's drop down and do that. Voters can always choose at any one year to empty that
Yeah,
account
they
at
can
any
amend
time.
that vote.
Right, gives them the flexibility so they're not locked
It
in.
would still require a school meeting, a formal school meeting after the public hearing.
Yeah, it all.
Yes, to have a special school district meeting.
And you would target that for what month?
We're looking at later in September
Okay. When will this money be returned to us?
this year.
This tax year?
Yep.
Well, it's not being returned to us, we have it in our funds from what I
Well,
understand.
as of July 1, it will be in our unencumbered fund balance, and it's heading for revenue for tax rating purposes, tax rate setting purposes.
Can I ask 2 questions before I forget them? Just so that as selectmen, the reason you're here is we get questions all the time.
You bet.
It helps for us to have some of this knowledge from your meeting. Is there any time of year that the money that we send to you guys gets zeroed down, like in the summer months, so that you can look at your checking account balance and that fund is down to the lowest point of the year? So if there's a balance in your account like this, that you're aware of it as a school board, or is it never a point where there's that low amount of money in there?
I'm not an expert on that.
Okay.
I think it's the latter thing. I don't think there's ever a time, because money's flowing in and out so much, there's never really a time you can look at your checking account balance and look at, you know, all the funds and the balances in there and equate all that together.
That's the only reason I ask that is because, you know, with that amount of money left in the account, even though the auditor might not have touched it, cause he's looking at numbers,
Right.
maybe a treasurer would have seen, hey, we have a lot of money still in here.
Yeah, and apparently not, because, our current business administrator had no clue that there was that much money in the account. And he's one of the sharpest guys I know of, the four I've worked with, far and above, one of the most capable guys.
And just on a follow-up to that.
Yeah.
You gave us, a couple weeks ago, you gave us this like a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
With graphs on it. And I talked to Deb about it, but there were two lines in there that where the balances still continued to grow as we were in a new SAU.
Correct.
Did that reflect?
That was my next question.
Yeah, you jumped on it. And I don't have the answer for that.
Deb kinda said there was more, she said, she reassured me that it was not happening in this current SAU.
Correct.
And she said there was a lot of more calculations after the fact
Yeah.
that showed the balances increasing. Because what you did was give us one page, and then she said there's about 15 other pages
Well,
with that.
there's more than that, the report is,
Right.
yeah, much
Okay,
deeper than that.
so it's,
And our
your explanation
business,
is still standing.
our business administrator will be at the public forum, and we're gonna put him right up there, and he's gonna do his best to try to explain all of this as to what's going on,
Jeff,
much better than we.
one other thing to go further on what Mike said is, I think when you would come in originally, I think that you said some of that SAU money on our current SAU was because we had so many students still going to the Goffstown High School.
No, it shouldn't have been tied to that.
It wasn't tied to it,
No.
okay, that's what my thought was.
Because the problem originated at SAU 19, when they're filling out their end-of-year forms, they didn't put the right number on the forms going to DRA compared to the forms that were going to the DOE and compared to the stuff that the auditor was seeing.
I wanna make sure the current SAU is not making the same mistake.
No, in fact, our auditor now will be looking at all these forms, where in the past, the auditor never did,
Okay.
to make sure. And the auditor really should have gone back to look to see if, because there's always some changes that happen, they're small, but there's always some changes that happen over that bridge period for the end of our fiscal year. And the auditor never went back to see if things lined up afterwards, but we will in the future going forward. And as far as I asked our business administrator last night, I said, it sounds like that as this $1,060,000 leaves our account, we're gonna have to be much more careful about our account balance and working with Lean on a schedule of payments to make sure.
We've never been, had any issues with our payments
Right,
whatsoever.
to make sure that payments are coming in a timely manner. What he may have to do is do it more on a monthly basis in advance, say, we'll need this much in this month and so forth, to make sure that the flow is.
Last year, didn't we have a couple that were a little late? I remember some reading about that.
No, but the thing
We've
is,
got a good working relationship.
and that's why we have, that's why it's good that we maintain a contingency fund.
Yeah.
So we cover you for
Right.
overdrafts.
So, we've been talking about what the school board can do, let's talk about what the town can do. And I mentioned, Mike, I called you the other day. The community's been really good to the school district as far as meeting capital needs and approving our projects and our funds and so forth. Does the town have some ready and more pressing capital needs? Could some of this money be used for the town instead of for the school? And what I'm thinking of is,
Jeff, I thought about that a
Yeah.
lot.
yeah,
And the thing is, I mentioned it to these two gentlemen, the thing is, not to give it back to the taxpayers, either by lowering the bond payment.
right.
It would, and for us to be playing, I would say,
You'd be asking, do you want to put money aside, you're not feeling
I'm
LOD?
not feeling comfortable with that at all.
The only major thing I can think of that the town would need, because we've kind of addressed some of the maintenance issues, which we're working on this year already. The only thing that I could think of was the meeting room on the second story of that town hall / library building. That's the only major thing that this town has kind of pushed down the road, but I know they've got some taxpayer kickback on it in the past because, the budget was higher than they thought it should be for the amount of work being done and whatnot. And I know that group is really looking at that, but that's the only major thing
Agreed.
that I can think of.
But
One of the things that happens now is the forum or the discussion we're having, and Lisa's being taped.
Yeah,
They're getting quite a few hits on that
Good.
site,
Yeah.
so it's probably gonna increase communication from townspeople with
perfect,
both the school
Yeah.
board and the select board, so that's one advantage, at least
yeah,
people don't come to our meetings. You have the same problem
Oh, yeah.
we have.
Yeah.
No one shows up, but everyone wants to complain, so
Yeah.
hopefully those that are listening,
right.
if they have something to say, have something,
Yeah. Well, if the town had, you know, more pressing needs, as I mentioned, you know, the thinking would be that the school would do that and still have that unencumbered funds, and the town could then raise their appropriations, and you'd end up with the same tax rate that we predicted in March. It's just, the town would then use that additional money and put it someplace. The town would have to have a special town meeting.
Yeah, wouldn't we have to have?
We would certainly have to have, in order to
And
have
you're
another
talking about
appropriation.
the town doing a special town meeting in this calendar year?
Correct.
Before the.
Before October.
Ew, okay.
So, and we certainly don't wanna have both a special school district meeting and a special town meeting. The school board would like, you know, if the town's got something where you folks would really like to push for, I think would like to talk about the school district doing nothing, letting the town decide if you wanna.
I would
appropriate the money.
love to have that library, renovated appropriately, but to do it at the expense of, when we, I mean,
Understood?
I don't feel comfortable anymore.
Yep, and this is the kind of feedback we, you know, wanna have.
And one of the tough parts with that is, we're looking at, we still have, things that need to be improved in the town. And we have no idea what the library's gonna cost us, and it may exhaust a good part
I
of the
mean, as far
budget.
as the painting and.
But
No,
there's
yeah.
painting, there's improvements that we have to do, whether it's at the police station, the fire station, public works, the transfer station. So, and we're trying to address those through having increased that maintenance budget.
Right.
And so, I don't know how, and, I mean, I have my opinion, but townspeople have their opinions too.
Yeah.
So, looking at enhancing it, we're going towards another project. Well, this year, as you went to the town meeting, we talked about, we have these things we gotta get done.
Yeah.
And now, you're not taking care of those issues, but you're jumping to another issue.
Yeah.
So I don't know how that would be received, you know?
So how is the town's capital improvement plan? Are you funding everything that's on that plan? Or at least the stuff that you really need that's on that plan?
We
Has
have
the town
been.
fallen behind? on-
Well, we've reduced our warrants for the CRFs, for the, fire department, and highway should probably be increased a little bit. And now we've depleted the transfer station, but to be honest, just from experience of what I've heard from taxpayers, for us to hold a special meeting to appropriate, get approval
Right.
to spend some more money, I think that people would perceive that as a want and not a need.
So what I was thinking is if your capital reserve funds have been depleted, you could hold a special town meeting and ask the voters, do you want to replenish these funds, or do you want the money just to go back and pay taxes? Or to reduce taxes, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, rather than the school district presenting a choice or an option, if the town had some real needs, we certainly wanna hear if, you know.
Can I ask one other thing?
Yeah.
I know that is maybe a little premature for that project, but if you gave that money back to the taxpayers this year, but yet as a warrant article on this year's, town meeting, was maybe to start the funding of that up again, wouldn't that almost keep it flat anyway?
That's what he's talking about.
Well,
No,
see-
I'm not talking about doing a special
Yeah,
meeting.
if you
Oh,
don't do
for
a
next year.
special, then you're gonna have the jumps up and
Yeah,
down.
you can't do anything, it just has to be given back.
Once we hit like October 1, we submit our forms to the state, our tax rate gets set, it's gonna either jump
Now,
or go down.
there's nothing wrong with the default.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely, nothing
But
wrong.
the thing is, I like keeping taxes level will do more help for people on fixed incomes in this town, rather than having up 1 year, down 1 year, because I think that option as you presented is something that the public will weigh in on.
Yeah, and, you know, for folks who are here for the long haul, that might be appealing. Those who say, yeah, I'm selling next year, I want all that money now, obviously it wouldn't be, but
But-
I'd
But
like
it
to at
looks
least
good
give
for
them that
them
opportunity
too.
to choose.
It looks good for them too,
Yeah.
even if they're selling,
Yeah.
because the taxes, and, you know, and I look at it two different ways, I guess. I know that when we receive our encumbered, unanticipated,
Yeah.
unanticipated revenue, we try to address the needs of the town.
Right,
You guys have a windfall and you can address the needs of the school And one of the things that you can get rid of is, there's a stigma out there, cause you know, there's a large number of residents, oh, the school part, the school
You bet,
part.
yeah.
So if you can address your needs using your, it's the
town
town
money,
people
yeah,
money,
yeah.
but it was,
Appropriated.
appropriated to the school.
Yeah.
And if the school could address those needs, and as Mike said, kinda level, even if you level it off for a few years,
I think it
Because I
would
think-
be better,
I agree with what you're saying, but what Jeff is saying is, they actually just went to the taxpayers and they have a plan for their capital improvements on that entire building as one envelope. So, other than giving it back to the taxpayers or paying a portion of that off each year, they don't have a capital improvements left on the building, cause they addressed them all as this. They're trying to only come to the taxpayers every 10 or 15
but the
years.
options he offered, like leveling off the tuition payments or whatever, have an impact on everyone's taxes.
They do, but again, if, I guess we're thinking of, we always have the default option. If neither board does anything, or if the voters decide at a special meeting, no, we don't wanna appropriate any money, then the default kicks in. But looking at both the town and the school, let's look to see where the needs are greatest, where the townspeople may consider investing, if you will, some of this money to meet some of those needs. And if they happen to be on the town side, the school board's got no problem with letting the town do an appropriation rather than the school board appropriating into a
can I
reserve
just
fund.
ask something? Now, you feel strongly that your attorneys mentioned that the courts will more than likely grant you that special
Yes.
school meeting.
Yes.
Do you honestly think that just because we wanna increase our capital reserves on the town level, that the courts would grant that? That's not like an emergency, that's not the same, I mean, I think we're looking at.
Yeah, so is that a bigger step than on the school side?
Yeah, I'm just
That's a good
thinking,
question.
would the courts really say, hey, you don't really need this special meeting because it's not an emergency? If a building burned down and we needed to,
Correct.
you know.
Well, you guys can explain that the money
You-
was unfounded and,
Right,
but you have it.
Right, and so I guess the explanation to the court would be similar to what the school board is that all of a sudden, the community has discovered $1,060,000 that we didn't know we had, that the community would like an opportunity to choose what to do with that money. And so that's where timing is of the essence.
Okay.
And as I said, the emergency is the emergence of this knowledge that money is available. So whether it gets applied to town or applied to school,
It's the same.
you're right, we'd have to make that
yeah, we have to get
argument
the
to the
court,
court.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, if you do it, Jeff, and you have the special meeting.
Yeah.
You can't go in there with 10 options, are you just gonna
No,
do 2 options?
I think so.
Do all the money back or reduce the tuition, let's say? You have to pick an item that's big enough that you can reduce
You have to get a
it,
consensus from the
and
public
not have
hearing.
something that's zeroed out, so the tuition's an easy one because you always have that.
It's almost like when you did the school, you had all these different funding options,
Right.
and you got a consensus at the public hearing.
Yeah, so that's the purpose of our public forum on June 12th.
Right.
Is to get some feedback. Let's explain to the voters what our situation is, try to explain where this money came from, and let's hear from them. I mean, we'll have some ideas, of things that we can do, but, we heard last night that, there's some folks who may wanna put more money into our capital reserve fund of the school district. They're seeing rapid growth in our school-age population, and they're wondering that, are we gonna need more classroom space before we've run out this 10-year bond we just took out? So maybe we should be putting money into that capital reserve to help offset. So there's lots of ideas out there, we wanna hear them all before the board decides what's gonna be on the warrant. And from what our attorney says, the process is that the board would actually write the warrant, and then that's what goes to the court. So the court understands exactly what we want to do at this special school district meeting. And because of that, there would not be an opportunity for petitioned warrant articles to appear. So it's not like voters can,
Or to even amend it, I would think, it would have to be.
I think you could amend it, you could probably amend the amounts up and down.
Oh, okay, I guess that would be a good question to ask.
Yeah, yeah.
So that we're not, you
Yeah.
know,
Okay, some people were like, well, maybe we'll put $800,000 towards the bond, and we want 200,000 as a tax break.
You bet, yeah. And that's the first thing I'm gonna do, is find out what amount would we have to leave as unencumbered funds in order to have essentially a level tax rate this
Right.
year. I mean, I think folks would love to see that. All right, we level this year, then we have this much left over. What do you wanna do? Do you wanna drop your taxes? Do you wanna drop your taxes a little bit for the next few years? Or do you just, wanna put it in the reserve account?
Can I ask a question? I'm a taxpayer.
Yeah,
You mentioned that your budget that was passed in March is
Right.
$1.34 to the tax rate.
$1.36, I think.
$1.36,
These-
okay.
So,
At the time, I'm just gonna throw this out there, at the time, you had said the operating budget increase, if passed, would be $1.24, so that's understandable that things changed.
Well, we had some revenue changes there, so expenditures were $1.24, but
Okay.
reduction in revenues meant we had to raise more through taxes, so the total
Okay,
was
so-
$1.36.
Okay, so that's the operating budget. They also passed the, warrant article to put money in the capital reserve.
That includes
That's
the dollar-
79 cents.
Right, the $1.36 includes the 79 cents.
It does.
Yes, that's everything. The operating budget was, right, it was $1.24, the capital reserve fund was 0. But if you look at the two, if you take the capital reserve fund out of the operating budget increase would be 45 cents.
Okay, I still can't get that in my head,
Yeah.
how you figure that out. I know that what you were explained on that spreadsheet was a change from year to year, but you still had to raise, if
We
you
did.
left the operating budget out of it, and
Yeah.
you said to your taxpayers, I wanna put this money in this capital reserve, I need 79 cents to the dollar,
Correct.
that's 79 cents. So I'm hearing that additional revenues is offsetting the $2 to bring it down to $1.36, is that what you're saying?
The operating budget increase is 45 cents, the capital reserve fund impact is 79 cents, together it's $1.36.
Okay, now, are you still saying the change from prior year, or are you just, because if I look
Yes.
at last year's operating budget,
Yep.
it was 6,200,000.
But remember, last year's operating budget, and that number includes the $240,000 that we put into capital reserve last year.
Yeah, cause that was passed.
Right. That
Correct, but it's
includes
all,
it.
see how I
So
calculate.
last year was their first year actually on this project.
No, I understand that, but when I present my warrants to the public, I have the operating budget separate.
Yep.
And then I have my warrants separate, and then I add the two together, so the true number that the taxpayers will see as an impact is not a change from prior year, it's just
Right.
what they're voting on this calendar year.
And the form that we presented was trying to show the change from year to year rather than, so we
And it's
tried
not-
to
yeah.
illustrate it differently than you did.
Yep, yep.
And we didn't word it correctly, instead of saying tax rate impact, that should have been tax rate change from this year, from the last year to this year.
Okay,
But yeah, it's 45 cents was the operating budget impact, 79 cents was the warrant article impact for the capital reserve deposit
So
And the
$1.36 was the increase from the prior year.
from the prior year for all expenditures and all
okay,
revenues.
so you have $1.36 here.
Yep.
I'm gonna go with your number, and now you're saying that this $1 million windfall
Yep.
could reduce it of $3.50. So
Right.
does that mean it goes up $1.36 and then
And then
down
down, exactly.
$3.50? So it's
Yes.
not a true $3.50 reduction, it's $2 and something. So people aren't gonna see that much, as much of a savings as they think there will be.
Well, correct, it's how you look at it, it's
Yeah.
compared to if we do, if this money wasn't here, you'd be paying this much more for your taxes. Because this money is now here, and last year we were here, because this money is now available, you're gonna be down here. So the difference from this to this is not 350.
No,
It's the difference from where we would be to where we could be,
Right.
is 350.
So it's
Okay.
$3.50 from what they would be paying at the increased
Right,
rate.
correct. Correct. It's, I know exactly where you're coming from,
And I have one
it's
more-
hard to put all the words together so that everybody can
yeah,
understand. We're
and
gonna work
I
hard
have
on
one
that.
more request from
Sure.
you. In my side of the town report, I provide for the taxpayers an estimated worksheet on the expenses, an estimated worksheet on the revenue, which is an Excel spreadsheet that I have developed
Mhm.
and from prior administration. And then I submit the MS form of the DRA, which is the budget and the revenue. And you could almost see the numbers that are reported in that MS form almost coincide exactly to the penny to my spreadsheets.
Yeah.
And that to me is a checks and balance
Yeah.
for me. I personally, if you can approach it, your board, would think that an MS form that you're going to give to the state, that's going to be setting your tax rate with,
Yeah.
would be more valuable reporting in the school side rather than this 15-page worksheet, which doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. And yet, I understand from hearing a response from the board in the past that it's history, it's information that should be put in the town report. But the real history is what that, you're going to be setting your tax rate.
Right, and so I think the reason we went to this type of format a few years ago is as we started thinking about our capital improvement plan and beginning to think of our capital budget as being independent of our operating budget. And because in the past, anytime, I mean, you have your operating budget, and then if you had other warrant articles that are capital related, well, the next year, that now becomes the new floor to measure your operating budget, including all those capital expenditures. And I kind of felt that was unfair. You're not really comparing the budget to operate the school from one year to the next.
Right.
You're adding capital expenses in there to inflate last year's operating budget and then saying, oh, we're only up 2% from last year's operating budget. Well, no, you're up more than that. So by separating them, we see what our capital budget does each year, and we see what our operating budget does each year. But those MS forms report the operating budget as including all those capital warrant articles, so.
But you can still, that's listed on a separate page. If you look
Yeah,
at my
and
side
which
of
is-
it,
Which is what.
you can
that
see
tried
the
to do.
operating budget is there,
Yeah.
the revenues follow, or the special, it's on a separate page, so it really, but then you get a total, like you said, you can
Right.
see the combined, capital warrants plus the operating budget and what it's really gonna do to the tax rate.
Yeah, and that's what we attempt to do
Yeah.
in this sheet
I
here.
mean, I would
Yeah.
just ask that you look at, you're at that final report that is, you're gonna be sending to the state and consider it, because it's very, once you understand how all those numbers, I mean, it's a checks and balance tool
Yeah.
that I have a report from the system, that the selectmen, I can explain where those numbers came from, and it really ties in.
But, you know,
well.
your operating budget is gonna go through the roof next year because of the bond payments in there.
Correct,
Correct.
yeah.
And so,
That's-
but,
But we're gonna report it as a separate item
right,
when we compare operating. budget
because
to
the operating budget is what you spend every day on teachers and
Yeah.
everything like that, and then
Right.
you have the bond payment skewing
Yeah.
what you report, actually.
And so we try to break that out to show the voters
And
that from a capital standpoint, this is what our capital needs are doing and our expenditures are doing.
Actually,
From
their
our
budget's
operating
much
budget,
higher
this
than
is-
ours, it doesn't move theirs that much.
So
When you
it's,
look at the
okay.
percentages.
it's always a challenge trying to figure out how to take this information that we're deep into and make it.
I think we're
palatable.
comfortable, we can answer questions from the public as we deal with the public.
Yeah.
We'll support your meeting in June,
Okay,
I think we got a consensus there.
So what is the date of that meeting?
June 12th.
We'll announce it appropriately too.
So it sounds like the postcard is only gonna occur for the special public meeting, or
We're gonna-
special school meeting.
We're gonna send a postcard for this forum.
The form also?
You bet.
Okay.
We want to get as many people there as we can. We're issuing some press releases, so we hope to get some articles in the newspaper.
Okay.
I don't know if we set a time for that, I'll take it back to you as to
So
the
the
time.
three options I see are all back in 1 year, reduce the tuition for 5 years, let's say,
Probably more like 4, but yeah.
do the town hall meeting room.
Oh, no, that will fly.
So let me ask another question, and Lean, this is probably more for you. Has the town ever considered going from a calendar year to a July to June fiscal year?
Oh, we've talked about it, and, the DRA and their auditors have said that it's a real nightmare. Now, has the school ever considered going to a calendar year?
No, because our school year is always, and our reporting requirements are
Oh.
July to June. So I know Manchester did it a decade ago, and other towns have done it, and the challenge is you have to have an 18-month
Budget.
budget year, and you have to appropriate for that. And what I'm not sure of is, do you actually get 3 tax revenues in that 18-month period, or just 2?
This is all beyond,
Yeah,
When
so
we have
my
our
thought is,
audit-
if it was really important, you could use some of this money to be that bridge to get you, if you really wanted to go that way, you'd have to do an awful lot of work in a very short time to make that happen.
I think what you're doing now with the idea of the public forum is you're basically, you go into the people who originally funded you
Yeah,
and saying, hey, listen, we have got some money and we want, tell me how to spend it.
yeah.
and I think that's a good thing.
And that's-
It's our $1 million meeting, is what we're calling it. It's
That's
our
good,
$1 million
it's
meeting.
early enough, it's in June, you're not
Yeah.
waiting, and then that gives you that solid block of time to approach the courts, to get the warrant, to do whatever else they need to do.
Will the courts act in a timely manner?
Yes. Well, I mean, we're not, our attorney says, that, I mean, summertime, so it's tough, but,
Right, we know about timely manners in this town,
Yeah.
with the little courts.
yeah. So, talking about process again, DRA will begin tax rate setting whenever we get all the forms in.
I'm usually one of the first towns to get
Exactly.
there.
Historically, we're trying to get everything in where, you know, our rate is set on October 3rd, October 9th, October 15th. I mean, it's early in the process, and we'd like to stay there. We looked at having our special, the challenge is, whenever we set the special school district meeting, by law, we have to have a public hearing at least 25 days prior. We'd like to hold that public hearing in the school. Our school is gonna be chaos until we're ready to open the doors for the public at the end of August. So, and then, when we open the doors for school, we have open house, we've got all kinds of stuff going on. We're trying to find a day there, which, we're on the calendar.
Right here.
Jeff, I just gonna throw out an idea.
Yep,
You had public hearings in the library before, in the hallway. It's no,
Yeah, but it's
the
gonna
whole
be
school
chaos.
It's
wrecked.
destroyed.
what I'm saying is, look at how many chairs you got here,
We're concerned it may
This is
not be big enough.
50 maximum.
50 maximum?
Yeah,
The
we're
number of chairs
concerned
are
it may-
filled, we're done.
It may not be,
Yeah.
I mean, typically, our
Shut the hearing.
school budget hearings are maybe a little more populated than the towns, but I'm hoping there are a lot of people at this.
Oh, yeah, okay, I'm just thinking out of the box here,
Yeah.
trying to get to a different location.
Yep.
We use the bowl
Well,
facility.
yeah, I think we can work it in.
Okay, but just you gotta think out of the box.
That's not a bad idea.
No, that's part of our
That's a
SAU.
So we're looking at potentially, August 30th, which is the second day of school, as our public hearing.
It's a
And
Thursday.
Thursday, the 30th. And then, if I can count the days here, that is 7, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25 days would take us to Monday, the 24th. So Monday, the 24th, or Tuesday, the 25th, sometime around then, have the special school district meeting.
And
We would need to have, you know, a few days for our school district clerk.
are you
to-
going backwards to July?
No, I was going forward, I was going,
Forward, okay.
Thursday, the 30th
Yeah.
as the public hearing.
Yeah,
And then sometime around Monday, the 24th, or Tuesday, the 25th, have the special school district meeting. We would need a few days to get our paperwork together. The school district clerk has to prepare the minutes and certify votes and so forth. So, you know, by October 1, we could be submitting,
Tax rates.
yeah,
okay.
So
So-
June 12th is an informative meeting,
correct.
then you're talking August after that?
End of August for the public hearing, assuming we have our court approval by then. And then September 24th or 25th, somewhere around there for the special school.
The first one's informative, the next one is gonna be a public hearing that the court allowed you to have.
And law requires us to have before any district meeting.
And then you're gonna do the district meeting and you have to wait 25 days?
Between the district meeting and the public hearing,
Okay.
correct. Yeah. We were looking at doing the public hearing on Tuesday, the 4th, after Labor Day, but that would put our district meeting Monday, October 1st. I think we'd like to back it up into that week prior, just to try to stay with the schedule that you
And
folks are
you
used to.
guys are off on the 30th, so you could attend the public hearing.
Yeah.
When
Some-
we're off, we're
some-
off.
Yeah.
Some of the
You're away.
I wanna say one thing though, I wanna thank the school board, the whole of you, for even thinking about and I understand it's taxpayers' money, but wanting to involve, trying to solve some of the town's problems. You know, cause I don't think we've had that kind of relationship before.
You're right, I mean, in the past, it's always been, this is school money, this is town money. Our board thinks this is community money, this is Dunbarton money, and so if there are certain needs, let's see how we can meet the needs
Here's a
of the benefit of the
perfect
community.
situation why the second floor of that building is so important. We have the school undergoing a renovation.
Yeah.
We have no good place in town to have a larger meeting. And these meetings here, when we get something that's controversial, you know, fills this room and they're out in the hallway.
Yeah.
And, you know, we need that in-between space, real bad.
I agree. I agree.
It's just the timing's gotta be right on the building,
Understood.
to get the money. And the thing is, I think the last time that the bond was presented during a bad time in the economy, and people did not wanna spend money.
So at our public forum, the school board wanted to know if the town wanted to if the town wanted to co-host this meeting with us, if the town had ideas that you wanted to bring forward for the people to consider. We'll leave that up to you guys to chew on and just let us know.
Well, at this point, I think we would support you, we'd be out there supporting, your concept of what you're trying to do.
Okay.
And I think we'd be there in full force if we had to be.
Okay.
I think your calendar on your website says it's at 6 PM.
Okay, that sounds about right,
June 12th,
Yeah,
6 PM. But again, if you folks get to talking and start thinking that, you know, a need arises and you wanna bring that to the public as part of this forum.
We get some time to think about it.
We'd like to have you up there with us and presenting ideas so that everybody can.
you know, like you say, the capital improvement in this town is, way underfunded when you look at that building's potential, and then you look at the age and depth of the fire department building.
Yeah. Yeah.
There are some serious needs that are gonna come down the road very quickly for the
Yeah.
town.
I say new safety center.
It's always hard though to get voters to look down the road. It's difficult, it's a challenge. So,
You can't
anyways,
have your money all at once, I'm sorry.
The space needs aren't just at the school.
no, they're not, and we recognize that, which is why we're here tonight. By the way, another thing we found out last night is that the state legislature has set another $10 million aside for a school infrastructure fund. It's geared primarily to safety, to security. The last one was for broadband service, it was for structural safety issues. This one's primarily for security. We're already talking with chief police about putting cameras in at the school, and the state will fund 80% of this stuff. He's asked us to at least run the cabling for the cameras, that we can put in cameras later. But now, if we're gonna get grant funding for this.
Could you, to run cabling, you could use that contingency fund of the 121K?
Yeah, and exactly, so, you know, we spend it out of, but we would get grant funding that would allow us to leave money into our capital reserve instead of spending.
They aren't wireless in this day and age.
You know, that's a question I asked. I said, at some point, will they all be wireless? And, you know, maybe, but not today. So if we
I
can
mean, I
get
remember when we
80%
did
funding.
houses and Cat9 cable and all kinds of other things, and that's not happening anymore.
You know, we're still putting, it's Cat 6, we're putting Cat 6 in. It's primarily for things like printers that need to tie into a server, or if you're doing heavy downloading and streaming things, you need to plug that in. But all of our teacher laptops, all of our other Chromebooks, they're all wireless. So we have wireless in each of the rooms, and
yeah.
so we're trying to figure out what's the appropriate amount of technology or technological wiring to put in at this point, recognizing that we're gonna leave over what we put in 5 years anyway. So.
Now, you were already applying for a grant for your entrance.
Yeah, so we got 30,400 or 30,600 was approved. They did not approve our expenditure for the card reader access for the main entry and the gym entry. And our business administrator thinks that that's a mistake, it's an overlook. He's gonna put that back in, that's his second round. for
Now, could you
funding.
go to this new
Yes,
dollar amount
yes.
for that too?
Yes, so,
Double-
we're actually, there's a few things that I found later that I thought, you know, that could have gone into that grant. For example, lighting, we need to put some additional exterior lighting for the addition. Well, that's a security thing, you put outside lighting to light up around your entrance. Let's add those things up, let's put them in.
The
Let's-
fire alarm system, which is expensive.
Fire alarm is an upgrade rather than an improvement, so I don't know.
Okay, I just
What-
think
yeah,
out of the
but
box.
we're gonna look at whatever we can find that would fit the state's category, definition in their category, and shoot for another round of funding, and if we can gather some more money, great, we get to keep some of our money in our capital reserve.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Appreciate the correspondence between the school and
Yeah, we enjoy working with you folks.
Yeah.
We Keep it up.
And, just to let you know, the building inspector's just given us like a bi-weekly report of ongoings and with the school project, and we've alerted him, at least he's got the instruction, it's a problem, let us know right away,
Yeah.
so it fester.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm gonna call him when I go over to do my framing inspection, so you can tag along and you can see what I'm looking at, and,
But it's been working well.
Yep, and I understand we have a full permit now, so they're blasting away.
Exactly. Okay,
Great, thank you, folks.
Very good.
thank you, appreciate it. Okay, gentlemen. We covered, I think, the majority of the town business. I see no reason to go
Before
into.
Jeff leaves, Jeff, I did give them an update of you and I
Yes.
talking about the town hall and being a month and a half or so away and whatnot,
Hopefully less
so
than that,
I
yeah.
appreciate your time on that as well.
And the contractor too.
Yes. You bet.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna open up for, public comment.
Okay. Well, just for the record, I hear everybody up there saying, school money, but it's not the school's money, it's the town's money, it's the taxpayers' money. It was money that was raised by the school board for through the taxpayers, to operate the school, which was found that they didn't need it, which they didn't know about. So it's actually the taxpayers' money, so you guys were wrong the whole time you were talking, I find.
Well, so no, we do acknowledge that, and that's why, we call it semantics, but it is the people's money.
Taxpayers' money.
Can I just respond to that? Unfortunately, the difference between the school's surplus is they have to return it to the town, whereas if where the town side, we could choose, the board could choose to leave it in the unassigned fund surplus.
And I'm not talking about theirs, I'm talking about the school.
Right, but for them to say, here, I wanna give you this money, you put it in your surplus, they can't do that.
I know, I'm just
Yeah,
saying
it's
it's the
unfortunate. There was
taxpayers' money.
some
So
mechanism.
noted, so noted, so noted, so noted.
It's just the
Stop it right
taxpayers' money.
there. We all know that, we all know that.
Well, just to make sure that
Yeah,
it's,
no, it's a philosophy, it's a mindset,
Mhm.
and I agree with you. And the thing is, Jeff is, that's why, then I really think they live into that philosophy, because then the school board's not making decisions on that money without getting the taxpayers' input.
and
And
I
applaud
understand that, that's why it's pretty evident to see that it's the taxpayers' money, not the school's money.
Correct,
Absolutely.
correct. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. Good night.
Anything else?
Nope.
Okay, I'm gonna bring it back to the board. I'm gonna start with Dave first.
I think they brought everything up,
Okay.
prior in the other discussions that I had.
And Bob?
Other than, what we just discussed, which, I guess we've had this talk about, the money that they do have is, I think we're on the same consensus, that it's gonna be the taxpayers that decide where it's going.
Right.
It's good to have someone ask us what our needs are, but at the same time, you need a hearing, and I think you need a special meeting so the taxpayers can really decide. Because, if they want it in one whack,
Yeah.
they want
I
it
just
one
wonder
whack.
if the courts would approve us having a public
That's
discussion.
I think that's a big
That would
risk.
be, I don't think we could, and, I was kinda wondering when they're talking about what our needs are is, I don't know if they wanted to drop their tax rate so we could increase ours, but that's why I mentioned, we have a plan now to attack the buildings in town. And I think that's what we need to do is, with our own dollars, finding a way to address the problems we have that have, carried over from year to year.
Yeah.
And,
It may require a bond eventually for that building.
and it may require us to look for a bond for that building, but it would be our decision to go that direction and not kinda getting a carrot held out to us to try to go in a direction.
But it was nice that they offered, which is.
And that's, and I agree, I think it was good that the school board thought about what are the needs of the town, but at the same time, in the end, they gotta do what they gotta, if they wanna offer a way that they can reduce the taxes for a number of years or not, but the town's gonna have to approve everything anyways.
Okay, I'm gonna go to the town administrator now.
I have one more item that we covered everything else earlier, and as you guys know, the Arts on the Common is scheduled for this weekend. I had one of the members of the group Margaret Watkins approached me yesterday and she was, she informed me that she'd just been told that the library was gonna be closed for the day. And, she had concerns about, limiting the public to the two porta potties, whereas for the last, they have to have been doing this for 5, 6 years, maybe longer, where they have this event on the common, and there's always been a public restroom available. I know that typically in the past, the Old Home Day, we definitely open up our handicap public restroom here, and we'll close the doors to the other sides of the office, and whether we need to post them, I think in order to support the group and how much work and effort they're putting into it, I told them I would communicate and check with you to see if it would be an issue for us to have the town billing office open during the,
Now, Lean, the other part that you had told me, which I think is important to do, is, it's more for the vendors to have a good bathroom, more than the public. So the vendors that are there, and a lot of the vendors are townspeople, I think, too, that are operating that. And if both doors were locked, I told Lean earlier today, I didn't have a problem because they couldn't be wandering throughout the building, and I agree with Leo that all the different people from public walking through that building without having the proper people in there to manage the people walking through it. You know, they would either have to pay 2 or 3 people to be in that building to watch over our
correct, and I told Margaret
library
that.
books and
that
everything
she would
else, or, you know, lock the building up, and this one here, we can have just a tunnel going to the bathroom. So I didn't have an issue with it earlier today.
And so Margaret was agreeable to that, she said that her vendors really look, that, you know, they put in a lot of time and effort, they're here for long periods of time during the course of the day, and this has always been something that they have provided them, that they could use.
Lean, where does the funding, the money from the arts,
It's
On the
all for
common go.
fundraising for the for the upstairs,
so it comes back to the town?
yeah,
So, as long as they can't get in the rest of the building, the money that's earned that day comes back to the town, and I can understand, like Leo said, it's not town residents walking through that building, it's everybody from the general public.
I only wish that, there was more coordination ahead of time instead of this 9th hour stuff. And, I think it's, to say that the public, a lot of townspeople come up here and say, if you're a resident of town, you can't use this town building, but the outside vendor can use it, but you can't, you're relegated to the porta potty. You're gonna have porta potty police and potty police saying you can't use it. Basically, once it's open to the entire public.
Well, no, what they weren't gonna do is put a public sign on it stating
I
that the
understood,
restroom was open,
understood.
so.
But the thing is, to say that vendors need it more than any resident, I think is so wrong. I think anyone who uses the bathroom can use any bathroom. I don't think it should be discriminated against residents or visitors or vendors. I think that whole idea of restricting a bathroom because they're a vendor is wrong. And to say that a resident can't use it because he's a resident and he's spending his money here and he's relegated to the porta potty is wrong. And I think we had the right idea of having a handicap porta potty out there before. And maybe they should, and the thing is, if porta potties are so bad that vendors don't wanna use them, maybe we shouldn't have the event. And that's all my piece.
What do they do at other events? Does every
Porta
town
potties.
open up everything to all the other events?
our
I'm just
bathroom is
asking.
open
Okay,
during Old Home Day.
I agree, at this
Yeah,
point, I
I'm
wanna
just
support,
wondering what other
I want,
towns do.
Other towns, okay.
I wanna support the effort, and I think the plan you have is okay, but,
Does the door coming in this direction lock? I know our select office does.
The one to this side, no, but if I put a sign there that says the office is alarmed, it's not likely that anyone will open that door.
okay,
I can look for a key to see if there's one, but,
that's my 2 cents.
If you go to a craftsman fair, they're all porta potties.
yeah.
I think if you go anywhere in the state, most of it's porta potties, it's
But,
not.
the only thing is, and I agree with Mike on one position where they don't get to us soon enough, it's at the last minute, cause they don't have a handicap porta potty.
Right.
So handicap will have to go here anyways.
Mhm.
No, they do, right?
No, they
No,
ended
they
up
didn't
ordering
get
just
one.
2 regulars instead of a
Well, we
handicap.
gave them plenty of notice to do that.
It's, in the past, they've always had a handicap, I don't know if they're just
No, they
trying to
haven't,
cut.
but at our meeting, we told them that we were gonna talk to
But they
them about
didn't
that.
do
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
We didn't do it, or they did?
I
They
don't-
didn't do it.
I don't know if it was
a.
a miscommunication on my part,
So-
but,
Well, maybe they should watch the meetings once in a
well,
while.
not only
You
that, they,
can't spoon feed information to everybody all the time.
That's why a little.
Did we notify them or didn't we? Is it the?
I notified them that the porta potties that they were gonna be ordering for their event
Needed to be
needed to be centrally located. I was not aware, in the past, we have had handicap toilets, we get them for the Old Home Day.
Yeah,
No, but we
not for
did
this
talk
event.
about it specifically that night.
Yeah.
I'm questioning whether it was communicated.
Yeah, I don't think
Because
it
we
was.
did talk
We did.
specifically about it, and we
Yeah.
said we gotta,
So the thing is, the fact that we had no representative here, I think this is the 9th hour, I think it's obligated to support them, but future, I think for future, we need to do a little closer communication and coordination.
well, I think that in light of it being missed this year,
Mhm,
I think that right here after this meeting tonight, we should notify them
yeah.
that next year, in writing, they need to have handicap.
We have a selectmen's rep, I'm gonna ask Bob to take it back to your, aren't you part of that group with the,
Arts on a Common isn't, I'm not part of.
aren't they part of the fundraising for the theater?
They're not part of the restoration committee.
Oh, they're not,
Arts, no.
They just donate that money
You
to
have
them.
Pat
Oh, is
Murphy,
that what
you
it
have
is?
Enid Larson, you have
Instead of
Ron
having,
Larson. you
oh,
have-
okay,
but instead of having a
whole
board
different
member bring it on their own, it ought to be in writing from all the selectmen that it was decided,
yeah,
not just at this meeting, but the previous meeting should be on there. And that next year, they should plan on having handicap porta potties out there for the public.
and you know what's funny is when Pat used to handle it, she would be here to talk to the selectmen about it before her meeting, and that stopped for the last couple of years,
But I think,
but,
I don't know who's the chair of that meeting, or that board, that group, but we should send it to the chair, or
yeah,
the
yeah.
head.
yeah.
But the thing is, I think we support them now, because they are doing, the money's coming in, but just, we can do a better job next year.
I think in the letter state right in there that we support their fundraising efforts and their
Yeah.
day. And we wanna continue to support them, but
2 days.
for days, yeah.
And of course, you know, it's funny, every year, one of the days is always a rain day. It's Saturday, Saturday's particularly be rain.
Well, Sundays have been raining.
So make sure in the letter, Lean, that we word it so that, you know, they know that we support their efforts.
Yeah,
But next year, we wanna make sure they're aware that they'll need to have handicap porta potties on the premises.
okay. Anything else, Lee?
No.
Leo, you had one thing else you wanted to say,
Yeah,
you an
yeah.
alibi.
Yeah, well, you guys were talking about, you know, working along with the school board with this excess money coming
Sure.
in, okay? And they were offering it up to you guys in case there's a project that the town might have. And my thought with all of that is, number one, it looks like you're trying to find a place to spend that money, but that's the way it looks like.
That's why I don't
Okay,
feel
but,
comfortable.
but you guys over the last, this board here has made tremendous advances in the money that you put aside for rainy day fund. You're fixing the buildings. Now, as far as the monies for the fire truck and for, yeah, those have been a little lowered, but that's because you've been trying to play catch up. Now you're caught up, basically, because your rainy day fund is getting healthier.
It's very healthy.
Way healthier than it has been.
It's it's virtually at state recommended levels.
And this, you don't have to paint this building every year, you know, the town hall every year. So what my point is, so you're gonna be getting caught up here to a point where we can increase the.
I think that's what Bob was alluding to, that we have a plan, and we're
Right.
following a plan of systematically making those
Right,
improvements instead of
right.
kicking them down the road.
Well, not just that, but instead of just saying, finding some money and saying, hey, yeah, let's use that.
No, that's,
You know,
that's.
because
I-
again, like I was trying to get at when I said that's the taxpayers' money is, those
I
people,
think-
everybody was charged that money already.
Well, I think also this board has, I think, quite a bit of confidence with the voters that we're gonna do the right thing with the money. Whatever money we have to work with, we're gonna do the right thing with it and make the right
Right.
choices, and taking that money, even though I'd love to see that second floor be renovated so it's usable space for the town, cause having that space
Yeah, no,
unusable makes
and I agree with you.
no sense at all.
I agree with you.
But I agree that the timing is not right on it, cause that project needs another year or two worth of paperwork to get it to the process where it could even be ready to go in front of the town people, so.
Right,
And to hold that money until that time frame makes no
no,
sense. to
no
the
one
town.
knows the needs
And
right
it
now.
doesn't look good.
Right.
It doesn't look good that this,
So-
that they received
Just, you
a
know,
large amount of money.
just trying to say, you guys are doing a good job
I think-
right now.
Yeah, I think the people in this whole room, we all have this consensus, and we pushed it back to the school board to do something with it.
You guys haven't raised the taxes on the town side at all, and you're doing all of this progress.
Well, and it also would have taken the burden and shifted it to our town attorney to
Well,
make the
yeah,
special
right,
meetings.
but my point is regardless of all of that.
Right,
You know,
but it would have cost us money to even,
of course.
with our time,
Yeah.
with you,
And
with
then
the town
suicide.
attorneys, yeah.
Yeah,
And then the school has got a valid argument in front of a court. A renovation project is not a valid
No,
argument.
and
it's
then
not.
you're gonna have the town clerk getting a little upset because there's not enough money, you know, to
Oh,
do all of
meeting.
these things.
Yeah.
But anyhow,
But
no,
I
I
think like
think,
Bob said, he appreciated that they at least,
Yeah,
they're keeping
No.
us in the loop,
Right.
because we get the questions more than they
yeah,
probably do.
I'm just saying, you guys are doing a great job now. You got, obviously, you know what you're doing,
Yeah.
you're keeping the tax rate down, you're getting things fixed, things done, and in the meantime, you're putting money aside, so, you know.
But haven't been controversial, our ratings are going down on the film.
Oh, yeah, I know it, obviously.
Okay,
Thank you, Leo.
I'm continuing on, no non-public tonight needed. And I'm looking for a motion, gentlemen.
motion to adjourn.
I'll second Bob's motion at 8:52 PM.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.